Hello, dear student. Welcome on this new chapter that we are starting. This is kinematics. Till now, we have talked about the very basic part of physics, in which we talked about the unit and dimensions, error analysis, and mathematics needed for physics. And this will be the first chapter from where we will be starting the core concepts of physics. And this is very important chapter as well because all the future chapters will depend on this kinematics. And rough idea about this you must have, or you might have, based on your schooling. In previous classes you must have gone through this chapter called motion. So it is something related to motion. So let's start what the kinematics is and the important aspect related to it. So kinematics is basically a branch of science or physics we can call, and which focuses mainly on description of motion. So it talks about motion and it uses for description of motion of any object. So we need to consider any object, whatever the object that is our focus, and we need to describe how the motion of that object is taking place. So here we are going to describe it, right? We are not going to explain why the motion is taking place, but how the motion is taking place. That's going to be the zone of this kinematics. So description of motion of any object, of course by any observer. So let me write over here, by any observer. So this observer is also going to play important role, and this has to be done without concerning about cause behind the motion. So this has to be done without worrying or without concerning about cause of it. So why the motion is taking place, we are not going to worry about. So this is why aspect of the motion, and that will be dealt in the next chapter. And this aspect that we are going to talk about is how. That means how motion is taking place instead of worrying about why motion is taking place. And when we talk about the motion, then few points must have come into mind. Motion, this motion is of some object, and that object has to be observed by some observer. So that observer is going to play important role, and then we need to describe it, how that motion is taking place. Making sense? And when the motion takes place of any object and then someone is observing, of course this time quantity is inherent. That means time is moving, that's going forward, and with respect to that time we need to talk about how the motion is taking place, right? So before we go how the motion is going to be described, first we need to know when we will call an object to be moving and when we are going to call an object to be at rest. So this motion and rest, these are the two aspects that we need to understand once and forever. So state of rest and state of motion. So how we can distinguish them? Are they same for all the observers and all the times, or they depends on observer and time? Let's take an example, a practical example, and then try to relate from that example. Let's say there is this car is moving, or we can call it as a train. That is going to be good. So let's say a train is moving like this. When we say object, that object can be anything. Maybe this object can be any physical object. So here the situation that we are considering is a train which is moving. When we say train is moving, that in itself is a question. Who says that train is moving? Okay. So let's talk about in a very layman language, and let's say this is a ground. On this ground there is a person. That's earth for us, or ground you can call. and this person is observer A or person A. So if the train is moving, that means this person is saying train is moving. That means the train is moving with respect to ground. And let's say there is an object placed inside it. This is an object. That is the observer, that is the concern, or that is the focus object about which we need to claim something. And there is another person sitting inside this train. That's called B. Now if you ask, the train is moving, so that means this statement will be given by observer A, because as per A you'll find the object will be moving as train is moving. But if you ask with the observer B, the observation of B is going to be very, very different. So for this object, you'll find the observer B will have a different opinion, observer A will have a different opinion. So if I write both the opinions, so as per A you will find, as per A, I hope you can think of what is going to be the state of object O. So as per A, O is, O for object, O is moving. Whereas as per B, another observer, the same object is at rest. Now from where we are claiming these things, they are shared experiences. If you are sitting on a train and train is moving, any object inside the train appears to be at rest. Whereas the same object, if seen by another person on the earth or from another location, so that observer will give us a different opinion, or may give us a different opinion. So from here, from this simple example, we can find out or extract some important aspect that's going to be useful in future. First thing, that the state of this object is not absolute. It is not same for all the observers who are there. It might be at rest for someone and it might be at motion for some other one, right? So that's important point. No state is absolute. It depends on the who is observing. That means this observer is going to play a very important role. So let's go a little bit inside, then try to think how this A was able to say that this object was moving, and how this B was able to say that object is at rest. So that's called a definition of rest or motion. So I'm going to write in short, and you can make your proper notes following the language. So state of rest will be the situation when this object remains wherever it is as per the observer over the time. So what is going to happen, this observer B is going to look at this object and keep on looking on this object for some time duration, and if that object does not change its position as per this, then B observer will be claiming that the object is not moving. So we can say state of rest is the situation when object does not change its position. That's important. Does not change its position with respect to time. That means over time, or I'm writing with respect to time, as per an observer. So all the points are important. What are the important points? Let me underline them. There has to be some object that has to be observed, and there has to be observer who is observing this information. And if then you focus on the quantity called change, this position, and this position if not changing over the time, another important quantity is time. So time, position, observer for an object decide whether the object is in rest or motion. So if this is the definition for rest, then you can think of what the definition for motion is going to be. In motion, it should change the position. So if the position is being changed, then that becomes motion. If it is not being changed, that becomes rest. And just we have talked about that in this example, that the same object appears to be in motion and same object appears to be at rest depending upon the observer. That means this observer plays very important role, and we are able to conclude that no object or state of an object can be said to be absolute. It depends on the observer, as well as it depends on the time. So time, observer, and position makes they helps us to decide whether the state is rest or is of motion. So observer, instead of saying that observer is observing, we sometimes use the technical term. That technical term is frame of reference. So when we say frame of reference, we basically mean who is the observer. Rather, we will say where is the observer. So if we need to define what is the frame of reference, we can say it is the platform. So it is the platform from where an observer observes the object. So if someone is observing an object, so what is the platform from where that is observing? That platform is known as frame of reference. So frame of reference is basically indicating the observer. That means from where the observer is watching the situation. For instance, in this particular picture, that example we took, this A is the observer A is located on the earth. So frame of reference for this observation is earth. So this is frame of reference. Frame of reference is ground or earth. Whereas this observation is not frame of reference of ground or earth, rather it is the frame of reference of train. So that is observation, or that means we can say frame of reference is train itself. And we know this frame of reference plays a very important role to state or decide what is the state of the object is, right? So this term we need to keep in mind. Now we will be talking about some important definitions that will be used in motion, because kinematics deals with motion. We do not study about rest because there's nothing to study about rest. Once you have decided that an object is not changing its position over the time over an observer, so this object is not going to change its position over B, so there will be no interest of B to study this object over the time, because all the time its coordinates, its location will be the same. There will be no velocity, no acceleration, no movement. So that's why rest is completed, because for rest it's sufficient to know where the object is and it is at rest. That's all. For motion, things changes because that's a dynamics. In motion, the object changes its position over the time. So there is a change in position, then there is a rate of change of position, there is a rate of change in position. So all those quantities we need to understand. So that's why we make some basic definitions, and we will go through those basic definitions. Most of you might be knowing, still we will be summarizing them once, and then we will try to use those definitions in order to solve questions depending upon how the rate of change of positions, velocity or accelerations are given to us. So let's move ahead. So in basic definitions, the first thing that we are picking is the position of an object. So how we define the position of an object, we need to know that. Though we have talked about the position of an object in vectors, so basically we are going to revise the same thing. So let's say we got this object that is placed over here. So if the object is placed over here, we know if we talk about the objects can be of one-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, or all that. So we are considering a general object that is located over here. So if we want to assign coordinates or assign the location or position of this object, we must have some coordinate system. So that means we must have some origin. Without origin, we are not going to say where the object is located. So whenever we talk about the position, there must be a reference location, and that reference is called origin, right? And if we need to assign the direction or position of this object, so we must say this object is certain distance from this at a certain angle. That's r and theta that we have talked about in case of basic mathematics. Now, so if we know r, we know theta, we will be knowing what the position is. But one more important point that is coming over here. This object is a big object, right? So which position you are talking about, whether you are talking about this position, this point of the object, or whether this point of the object, or this point, or this point. So there are infinitely many points in the object, and all points will have a different coordinates. So that means this object will not have a particular position, rather there's going to be n number of positions as a vector. Are you getting my point? So this to sort out this, to start with, we will assume all the object as a simply point object. So this point you can think of now onwards, we are not going to talk about all the objects as a real shape or size object, rather we will be dealing them as a point object. So let me erase this and replace this by a point. So this object will not be studied as a complete object. That means for us, dimensions of the object are not going to matter anymore. It will be simply, we will simply say this is the object. So simply we will say this is the position. That means object will be treated as a single particle. Okay. So sometimes we are also going to call it as a particle. So size of the object we are dropping, and we will be catching it on upcoming chapters. First, to start with, we will take all the object as a point object. So we also call it as a point object, or you can call it as a particle, or simply object. All will mean the same thing. Now, how to decide, how to define this position? Position can be defined in terms of r theta, that's the polar coordinates. Or you can go for this, that is having x comma y coordinates. So you can write position vector as xi plus yj. So this is how you can say where the object is located at any time. So if it is changing its position, then r may be changing, theta may be changing, both may be changing, or similarly x and y may be changing. But at any instant, you will find this equation to be valid. So that's called position vector or position of an object. Next definition comes out to be a distance, and distance is basically the length of actual path. So I'm writing in short, it is length of actual path followed by an object during its motion in some given interval of time, in given time interval. So in given time interval, whatever the length it covers actually, or actual path, that length is known as a distance. Just to add on this particular figure, so let's say the object was located at location A when you start watching it, so that was the position, and let's say it moved in this way and reached to this point B, and which was this is the actual path. So we will be measuring this actual path length. So whatever the length is going to come, that length is going to be known as the distance. So distance is always the length which is of the actual path or real path or whatever the path it followed, right? Since it is a length, so it has to be measured in terms of meter or centimeter or this. So that means we need to know what the unit is. When we say unit, we are talking about SI unit. So its SI unit becomes meter. And then we need to know which type of this quantity is, whether it's a scalar quantity or vector quantity. So length measurement is going to be scalar. So distance is a scalar quantity. So that means whenever we are going to use length, we need to use the scalar algebra. We should not go for the vector algebra. So it's a scalar quantity because it does not require the direction. It simply measures the magnitude, and magnitude in SI unit is measured in meter. Moreover, we can say how we will be representing it. So many terms are letters are used for representation. Generally we use S letter for distance. Sometimes we use X or Y, Z, or whatever, we can use that as well. So this x or s, they are used generally to write the distance in terms of symbol. Okay, so that's the definition, and this picture is trying to say what is going to be actual meaning. It's a meaning of actual path length. Next definition is displacement. So displacement is defined as the shortest length between initial and final position. So we can remember it as it's a shortest length between initial and final positions. Initial and final positions of an object in a given time interval. So in a given time interval, from where to where the object goes, so we will be writing their positions, final and initial, and we will be finding what the shortest length is going to be. So whenever an object follows any of the path, shortest length is always the straight line between initial to final. So that is A, that is B. If it goes from A to B, then you'll find this is going to be the shortest length which goes directly from A to B in the form of a straight line. And here we will be saying the direction, that means it's going from A to B. So that means A is going to be the tail point, or B is going to be head point of that arrow. So that will become the vector quantity. So this AB direct length or straight length or shortest length is going to be known as a displacement. So we will be writing this displacement as AB vector. So it will start from the initial point, will go to the final point, and this can also be represented as R vector. So sometimes we will use this R vector to represent the displacement, and we have understood in vector what this meaning of AB vector is and what this R vector is. And we can write in terms of position vectors. We will writing as a position vector of final point, that is B, minus position vector of initial point A. That means if we know the final position, initial position, we can form them vectors and subtract and find the displacement as a vector quantity. So from here some more point we can extract that this is a vector quantity. Hence whenever we are using the displacement, we need to use the vector algebra, and its SI unit is going to be measure of length. So SI unit is going to be meter. So that's what we can remember, that's it's a meter, and it is denoted by letter R as a vector quantity, right? So that's a displacement. Now from here one thing we need to notice, and that's going to be very critical for us, that there is a difference between distance and displacement. And you'll find this is a distance, and let's say this is a displacement R vector. Now there is two R vectors, so I'm erasing this earlier one so that we are not confusing. Here the displacement we are using as a vector R. So some conclusions from here we can draw. First of all, S and R, that means distance and displacement, cannot be compared. Why cannot be compared? Because distance is a scalar quantity and displacement is a vector quantity. So if somebody asks which one is bigger, displacement or distance, you say we cannot compare because they are very different quantities. One is a scalar, another is a vector. Yes, what we can compare distance and magnitude of displacement. When we say magnitude of displacement, that means we are simply talking about the number without direction. And the distance is also a number. You will find distance is always greater than equal to 0, positive. So distance can never be negative. The point is that distance can never be negative. It's always greater than equal to 0. Moreover, we also know this modulus value of any vector is always positive. So that means both the quantities are positive. Hence we can compare their magnitudes, and bigger will be one which will have a more magnitude or larger magnitude. So simple, right? And if you look this a general example that I illustrated on this figure, you can find the length of this actual path. If you find the length of this actual path and you find this length is straight, then you'll find this straight length is going to be smaller as compared to the actual path. So from here we can conclude that this distance is greater than displacement's magnitude. Making sense? Moreover, can we think of they can be equal as well? Yes, they can be equal if the particle is following the same path, that means a straight line path. Then you'll find both are going to be equal as well. So we need to place this equality as well. So that becomes an important small observation. That observation says this magnitude of displacement and distance can be compared. First of all, keep in mind it's a magnitude that we are not comparing vectors. Actually, vectors comparison is not allowed. Why? Because vectors carry directions, and directions comparison is not allowed. We cannot say north is bigger than south or south is smaller than west. It's not feasible. So vectors can never be compared. What can be compared is the magnitude. So that's why we need to write here magnitude, and then we will say distance is always greater than or equal to displacement. And then when it is going to be equal to, so we can bifurcate into two parts. This distance is always greater than displacement's magnitude, and there will be one case when the distance will be equal to displacement's magnitude. Now the second thing will be observed if object or particle moves on a straight line in one direction. So if object moves on a straight line and in one direction. In a straight line we know there are two directions, so direction change is not allowed. If direction changes, then you'll find this will not be true. That means what not be true? Distance and displacements will not have the same magnitudes. And this is going to be otherwise. Otherwise means curvilinear path. That means it's not on a straight line. Not on a straight line. So if a particle is not moving on a straight line, then you'll find distance will always be greater than the magnitude of displacement. And if it is moving on a straight line with one condition, that condition is it should not change its direction, that means moving in one direction, then you can claim this is going to be the case. Otherwise this is going to be the case. So that's comparison is very, very important and very simple, you must be knowing. And this has been asked in this even JEE or other examinations. So if you are understanding it proper way and getting it completely, and there is going to be no chance of getting a wrong decision. So that's a displacement definition and its other properties. So let's take an example over here, and this example says a particle moves as shown in this figure. So a particle moves from origin, goes there, then it turns, then it further turns and reaches to this final point. So for a given particle or object, we need to answer, basically this is a given motion of a particle, we need to answer, find number 1, distance covered by the particle. So you can pause and answer what the distance is going to be. And let me solve here what the distance is going to be. So as per the definition, we will say it is going to be the length of actual path. So if particle starts from here, so this length it covers, this length is 10 meter, it's written in meter, and then it covers this distance which is 20 meter, and then finally goes down which is again 10 meter. So actual path length is 10, 20 and 10, all are being added up. So we write 10 plus 20 plus 10, which will lead to 40 meter. So we will say this 40 meter is going to be the distance covered by the particle. And as the second part, it is asking find displacement. So what that displacement is going to be? So we say displacement is written as a vector. So our vector we need to find. And we know, we have understood, or we have talked about this point, that displacement is a vector starting from the initial point going to the final point. So that is going to be the displacement vector, and this is going to be written as r vector. Now since this is r vector, so you can reach its magnitude and direction. What is the magnitude? This is going to be 20, so that's the magnitude. And direction is going to be I cap as shown in the figure. So 20 I cap in meter is the displacement. So you can see from here that the displacement is a different thing, distance is a different thing, they have a different definition. So whatever the definition they carry, we need to follow that. And this is a vector quantity, that's a scalar quantity, and you can check the magnitudes. This is 40, this is 20, distance is more as compared to displacement magnitude, which was expected. A similar small question for you to try and answer. It says a particle is moving on a circle, so that's a circle. Let's say a particle is starting from location A and moving like this, and this circle has a radius that is r. So r is given as 10 meter. You can give your answer in terms of pi, it will work. So r is 10 meter, and question says a particle makes 4 complete rounds on the circle, on the circular path. So path is circular, or we can simply say on the circle. Find first part, distance covered by the particle during this journey, and second part, displacement of the particle during this journey. Of course you can solve it if you are following the definition. So follow the definition, solve, and give the answer on the comment section. And if all of you should get the same answer, then this purpose will be done. So with this we will be able to understand the two basic definitions, which is a distance and a displacement, and their relations or differences or whatever you call them. Okay, so let's keep this first video of kinematics short, and the next upcoming video will have information about other basic definitions like speed, velocity, acceleration, and their instantaneous average values. And then after we will be starting motions like one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and multi-dimensionals. Okay, so that's all for the day. Thank you everyone.